program is the active center. It's created by David Sappe.
Pronounced Seppi.
Pronounced Seppi.
Have you ever stopped to wonder why you can't have everything you want? Well, today, we're going to talk about the one fundamental rule of economics that pretty much governs your entire life. Seriously, from your morning coffee to your career choices, it's all about scarcity. I mean, it's the ultimate question, right? We've all asked it. Maybe you were a kid staring at a wall of toys, or even an adult just looking at a restaurant menu. Why can't we just have it all? It sounds so simple, but the answer to that question is literally the starting point for our entire economic world. So let's get right to the heart of it. The whole entire field of economics, when you boil it down, starts by facing one simple universal truth: the problem of just not having enough. And that brings us to the big one: scarcity. It's a really simple idea, but it has absolutely huge implications. Nothing is infinite. Not your time, not your money, not the resources of our planet. Everything is limited. You can think of economics as basically the science of how we, as people and as a whole society, manage these fundamental limits. Now, scarcity isn't always super obvious. We all get that a Babe Ruth rookie card is rare. Its scarcity is right there on the surface. It's evident. But for centuries, humanity kind of treated resources like clean air and fresh water as if they were infinite. This created what you could call a hidden scarcity. And the consequence of that assumption? Well, it's pollution and depletion, and it's forcing us to face the reality that even these essential things are, in fact, scarce and unbelievably valuable. Okay, so if everything is limited, that forces us to make choices, right? But how do we decide? How do we figure out what something is actually worth to us? Well, economists have a word for this, of course: utility. You can just think of it as usefulness, or the personal satisfaction you get from something. The big idea here is that all of us, all the time, whether we realize it or not, are trying to use our limited resources to get the most utility possible. We're all just trying to get the best bang for our buck. And here is the absolute key. This is so important. Utility is completely 100% subjective. What's incredibly useful to me might be totally useless to you. It's all about your personal context and what you need. And this example just illustrates that perfectly. So for a steel mill owner, a ton of raw iron has super high utility. I mean, it's the lifeblood of their business. A bale of hay? Yeah, not so much. But now for a dairy farmer, that bale of hay is absolutely vital for feeding their herd. That's high utility. The raw iron? It's just a lump of metal to them. You see? Same resources, but completely different values, and it's all based on who needs them. So if utility is so personal, how do we scale this up? This is where our own individual choices suddenly become this massive society-wide challenge. If everything is scarce and everyone values things differently, how in the world do we as a society decide who gets what? Well, ideally, the goal of any economic system is to achieve something called allocative efficiency. I know, it sounds a little technical, but it just means minimizing waste. It's the challenge of producing the absolute most we can with the limited resources we actually have. But achieving that kind of efficiency is not easy. There are all sorts of things that constrain us. We're limited by our current technology, by the infrastructure we have in place, the reliability of our supply chains, the availability of utilities like power, the number of skilled workers or labor that we have, and of course, the capital, the money to fund the whole shebang. So with all these very real limits on what we can produce, we're faced with a monumental question. How do we solve this distribution problem fairly? Well, societies have come up with different philosophies, different systems to try and answer that. And while they're all aiming for efficiency, they have very different ideas of what fair actually means. This table lays out the three main approaches pretty clearly. First, you've got the contributive standard. This one's associated with pure capitalism, and it basically says you get resources based on what you produce or contribute. Then there's the needs standard, which was an inspiration for communism. It argues that resources should go to those who need them the most. And third, we have the equality standard. This is a more theoretical idea that proposes everyone should get an equal share, no matter what. So let's tie all this together real quick. It all starts with that universal problem of scarcity. Then we navigate that problem through our own personal sense of utility. As a society, we're all trying to reach the goal of allocative efficiency. And the system we choose to get there, whether it's based on contribution, need, or equality, is the answer to that great distribution challenge. And that brings us to the final thought I want to leave you with. The society you live in right now has a system for allocating its scarce resources. So take a second and think about it. Is that system based primarily on what people contribute, what they need, or some ideal of pure equality? The answer is rarely simple, but just understanding the question, that's the first step to understanding the world around you.